Mhm. Hi, everyone. Yeah, as Andrew said, that my name's Yasmin. I'm from Canada. I've been an ex-Muslim for close to 20 years, but I just identified as an atheist, and I only just recently discovered the term ex-Muslim and discovered the ex-Muslim community online. And meeting all of the other ex-Muslims encouraged me to um, start getting over all of the things that I had just buried and forgotten about. And actually started writing a book, and I'm posting chapters on Tumblr, and it's a really cathartic, useful experience. It's helpful for me to get it all out, and it's also helpful for people that read it to get personal perspective and hopefully to help. One of the aims is to help people that are in the situation that I was in, just to let them see that there is a way out. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and no matter how bad it is right now, there is a way out. Yeah, yeah. That's it really, really upsets me. It drives me crazy, and I feel like the we're the liberal world is really betraying ex-Muslims. And yes, I think I mean, I did until yeah, exactly. Now I think I might be more of a centrist, but things have gone like way out into left field so far that the left, the Western left is in agreement with the Muslim right, which is a real problem because they would never be agreeing with the far right Christians, but somehow they find themselves agreeing with the far right Muslims, and they need to stop and think about that, like what's going on. How am I Well, because Muslims have brown skin, therefore they are seriously, I don't know, this is my opinion, but I think that then therefore they just see them as a little minority group that need to be protected, and we can't say bad things about them. And it's, to me, that's the ultimate bigotry of low expectations, right? Because if I were to tell you, okay, there's this individual and he believes that if you're homosexual, you should get your head chopped off, and he believes that a woman's word is only worth half of a man's word, and men are allowed to beat their wives, and yada 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 yada. And all non-Muslims should be killed. How do you feel about this individual? And they'd be like, wow, he's horrible. And then I'll say, okay, but all of these things are in Islam. And then they'll say, well, that's their business, that's their religion, that's their culture. We have to respect that. Yep, totally. Yeah. Oh, you're just a young little buck. Well, seem it because you seem very, like, you think a lot, like when you first introduced yourself, you said you have a very Western point of view, but you actually have a very nuanced, like a very like intellectual point of view. You're not thinking of it. A lot of the people that look at things from the West see things from their perspective, like almost myopically, but you're not like that. You're able to see humans and individuals as like separate things. You don't see people based on like just from your perspective. Do you know what I mean? Like when I was speaking to a friend of mine who does that thing where he sees Muslims as, you know, a minority group that need to be defended, and therefore no matter what they do it needs to be defended, otherwise it's racism. And I was telling him, like, that's from your perspective because only 3% of, you know, Canadians are Muslim or whatever. But if you look at it from a global perspective, not that it's relevant anyway, but anyway, I was just telling him, if you look at it from a global perspective and, you know, 1.6 billion Muslims and how rich these Muslim countries are and how powerful they are not how you see them. They are, that's a, you know, like you know what I mean? Mhm. Interchangeably, yeah, that's true. Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, 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 and we sell ours to Saudi Arabia. Mhm, mhm. That's good. Mhm, mhm. But Kurdish people don't have power and money and influence, that's why. Mm, mhm, yeah, mhm. I did, I lived in Qatar actually for 7 years. Yeah, and yeah, yeah, and then I lived in Egypt for a couple years, which is really different because Qatar is super rich and Egypt is not. But you know, yeah, in Egypt I was there from about 17 to 19, 20-ish, and yeah, and Qatar I was there like from the age of 29 to 36, so I was an adult. No. Really? How can anybody ever say that? Like, yeah. No, it's obviously it's very Islam, it's both of those countries have Sharia law, which I think is the crux of the biggest problem here. I think that Islam needs to be disarmed. Like it needs to lose its there are so many theocracies, theocracy, Islamic theocracies out there right now, where the Islamic law supersedes any secular laws, and that is a problem. Um, you know, like even if the Old Testament says, you know, gay people should be killed, I don't know if it does or not, or but if it did, there you go. Okay, it says you should stone the fuck out of it. It says, and but nobody can do that because we have secular laws that say, well, no, it's actually illegal to stone people. But when you live in a theocracy where the the 1500-year-old book is full of misogyny and racism and homophobia and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then how can you progress as a nation? How can you progress as a people if you're keep on referring to 1500-year-old laws? So the Egypt and Qatar had that in common, even though they were two totally different countries with, completely different, economic issues. But as far as misogyny and the classism and the racism and the sexism and every ism you can imagine, they had that in common because that comes from the Sharia law, right? Um, oh yeah. Hmm. 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 Well, in Egypt, it's actually my story. It's quite interesting. I was just left there. I went to, yeah, yeah, my mom just got tired of dealing with me. So I woke up one morning and they were gone because we'd gone for summer vacation and I thought we were going back home, but they just left without me. So I was there for 2 years. Yeah, yeah. So I was there for 2 years. And I had to get used to living there. I started working there. Um, I had to start, like, I learned the language and just get acclimated to the culture. One of the most difficult things to get used to in Egypt, and a simple Google search will show you that, like, it's something incredible, like 99.4% of Egyptian women have been sexually harassed in their lifetime. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's not, I mean, I'm laughing too, but you kind of get to the point where it's like, what else is there to do, really? Like it's an astronomical number. Um, and it was very true. It was very, very difficult to live there. Um, getting on getting on public transit, going to the store. I couldn't go anywhere by myself, of course, but if you're with I was, yeah, I was wearing a hijab. So, and I remember being on a bus one time and there was a woman there with her friend and the men were harassing her. And usually if you're there with a guy, they leave you alone. But she was there with a guy, but they wouldn't leave her alone. And the guy was like, "Can you like back off?" And they were saying to him, "Well, she's the one that's not covered up. She wants this. Like she's asking for it." Yeah, I know. And I was like 18 years old sitting there on the bus going, "Huh, like they have a point, because that's the world that I was living in. That's what I was raised in. That's what I, yes. Yeah. And that's why it is fucking crazy. It's so, but now I look back to myself at that point and I just want to go back to that girl and slap her and be like, no. Yeah, that's right. Like I feel really guilty that I didn't stand up for that woman. But this is why in these countries the women end up covering themselves more and more and more because they think that it's their fault or that they need to uh, somehow control the situation by covering themselves up more. But even though they're all covered up from head to toe, 99.4% of them are being sexually harassed. So obviously, the covering up the women isn't making any kind of difference when the men are allowed to act like animals and there's no, you know, what's there you go. There's no recourse. That's right. In fact, it's encouraged. It's like, well, what do you expect? Boys will be boys, she's not covered up, so therefore it's kind of like expected. Yeah. This is this is what we were talking about earlier about seeing things from a Western perspective. Like, I just want to take people like that and drop them off in Saudi Arabia for one fucking day. Like, stay there for 24 hours and then come back and talk to me. Yeah. Like, anywhere you choose, anywhere in the Muslim world you want to go, I'll drop you off. I'll come back and get you like in 24 hours, and then we can talk about feminism. Like, they're so skewed. They have absolutely, I mean, I see a lot of feminists talking about things like manspreading or wanting to walk around topless or whatever. And it's like, that's cool and that's fine. But if you're going to, I feel like it's kind of, you're putting in so much energy and so much of effort fighting to be topless, but then can you imagine how these women must feel that are covered literally in a garbage bag, like from top to bottom, or little girls being forced into marriages, or FGM, or so many other issues that you could be spending your time on? I don't either. Mm, mhm. Yeah. 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 Yes. Mhm. Mhm. Fuck. This is why I blocked him. Yeah. No, they're both opposite sides of the same coin. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. 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 No, yeah, I tot Mhm. Mhm. I mean, I Mhm. Mm. Hmm. Yeah. 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 Yes. Yes. But it's Mhm. It's kinda it's again back to my point of everything being 1,500 years old. I mean, if you look at anywhere in the world 1,500 years ago, the way women were being treated, what like, that it was commonplace for women to be second class citizens. True. That Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just thinking back to the suffragettes in the US, like, when they were just, like, 100 years ago when they were fighting for their right to be able to vote, basically fighting to be viewed as equal members of society to men. Um, and the women were fighting for a long time. Like, it took 80 years or something for them to get the right to vote. And it only things only started to change when their husbands and the male politicians started to say, "Oh, okay, okay, fair point." You know, but women were literally dying, like throwing themselves. like in front of horses so that they could die for the cause to bring attention to their cause. Yes, that's right. That was in the UK. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, aristocrats or something. Mm. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Mhm. But this was just to support your point of, like, in Saudi Arabia, women can fight for what they want, but it's not until the men say, "Okay." Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Yep. Yeah, 'cause she's wearing nail polish or something. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. They don't even it doesn't even matter because there's no repercussions for it. Like there's nothing. Like that guy that just killed his sister in Pakistan because he didn't like the pictures that she was posting up on Facebook. There are loopholes in the law that say, well, if it's an honor killing, you're okay. They're just changing those laws now because this is such a high profile case because his sister was like social media famous. They called her the Kim Kardashian of Pakistan. So just now they're starting yeah, so now they're looking at the laws and going, maybe we shouldn't allow family members to kill their sisters or because for honor. In 2016, this is just a consideration, and or the other law that they just had recently where they said men can hit their wives lightly, which is actually an improvement upon the Quran because in the Quran it just says if your wife disobeys, beat her. And yeah, they've they've had such a problem with domestic abuse and domestic violence that they're like, well, we're going to have to make a law that he can only beat her lightly. So I mean, it's crazy that these are the kinds of laws that are coming in now, that are just starting now in those countries, and it's going to take a long time if we're going to continue to move at a snail's pace. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That's right, and that's an example of a secular government overriding a theocratic law, and that's what we need in all of these Muslim countries, like, what, 13 Muslim countries now that are under Sharia law? That's what needs to happen there, because then it disarms Islam and it makes it more benign, and then it becomes like Christianity or any other religion, where I don't care what imaginary friends they're gonna pray to on Sunday, it means nothing to me. But if they're going to have laws and if it's going to affect people and if they've got all of this, they have a lot of money and power that's behind these archaic barbaric laws, then we have a problem, right? That this affects the whole world now. I personally feel I personally feel that the heart of this whole matter is Saudi Arabia, and we need to stop being allies with them. I mean, I know that it comes down to money at the end of the day, and it's so difficult for people to put human rights ahead of cash. But I just read an article the other day where Sweden had some integrity and said no, like they were doing some sort of deal, and it broke down because Sweden was insistent um, that they enact some human rights policies or something like that. I didn't actually read it in detail, I just skimmed it. But, that's what we have to do. I've heard a rumor, I don't know how true it is. I've heard a rumor that their oil is going to dry up by 2020, and I really hope that's true because I'd love to live to see that day. Yeah. Well, we're only the silly thing, we just oh no, the whole thing is just a joke, right? Like we're selling like $15 billion worth of arms to Saudi Arabia, who is going to use that to create more refugees for us to take in. Like it's a ridiculous, like what are we doing? How are we Yeah, you know, like yeah, because every government just thinks in 4-year spurts. And they're like, well, I'm going to make $15 billion and that's all that matters. And so then they don't really, it doesn't matter what happens after that. But, Saudi Arabia is a monarchy. They don't think in 4-year spurts. They think long term. I mean, when they started building mosques and schools all around the world, this was back in like the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, they're in for the long haul. And they don't yeah, yeah, and they're an absolute fucking monarchy, so this is it. This is their whole life, and it's so different than politicians in the Western world that see things in such short little, you know, spurts. Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Yep. Mhm. No. Yep, yep. Yeah, yeah, at the least. Mhm, mhm, mhm. It's getting better. Mhm, mhm. Yep. Yeah, and they're using WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook, and they're like, "Oh, there's nothing we can do about it." Yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like they I don't know. Like I was talking to a friend of mine who's like, "No, that's not how encryption works." But I don't know. I feel like if they can shut down Nero or Milo, they can shut down these guys. You know what I mean? Like just don't let them have access to WhatsApp then. Like let them or use WhatsApp to try and find them. Like where I don't know. I don't know. But I just feel like our technologies should not be supporting sex slavery. Mhm. Yeah. That would be the quickest way, but yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know. Is it because it wasn't a religion? Is it because there was no God involved? Is that what the difference is? Like, how can they not see that they're so similar? Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty shitty over there. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And people over there are fighting really hard too. There are lots of secular Arabs that are, being killed all the time for speaking up, but yeah. 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 Yep. Yep. Yep, that's right, with their 3 children. Oh, no. No, they're getting hacked to death in Bangladesh, like, with machetes. Mhm. Mm, mm, mhm, mm, mhm, mm, mhm. What was that? Felix. Uh-oh. Okay, okay, okay. Um, yeah, well, I'm thrown off now. It's like yeah, so what were we talking about? Yeah. Oh, yeah, the whole Israeli, yeah, Palestinian thing. I mean, to be honest, like I was like talking to a friend of mine the other day where she's like, I just don't understand. Like, why can't they see like blah, blah, blah? And it's like clear as day. And I said, that's because you're already enlightened. You're already a critical thinker. So it's difficult for you to imagine what it's like for somebody who was brainwashed and who has never seen other points of view. It's difficult for you to understand what it's like to be in their mind, and in the same vein, it's difficult for them to understand what it's like to be in your mind. I mean, I saw this really great memes are sometimes really simplistic, but I saw a really great meme the other day that said, um, scientists read hundreds and hundreds of books and they still feel like they need to learn more. Whereas religious people read one book and they feel like they know everything. And that's really what it comes down to. From the minute you're born, you're indoctrinated into this one way of thinking, and it never crosses your mind that there might be a different way of thinking. Like this is the only book that matters, and that's all there is. Yeah. No. Yes, anything else that you hear is wrong because this is the truth. And so you don't even bother listening to anything else or learning about anything else because you already have the ultimate truth. So it totally blocks any learning. I mean, what do they say? As soon as you say, I know, you've stopped learning, right? And that's what happens. You know, you have this book and you know the ultimate truth. You know everything about everything. So there's nothing more to learn. And that's why it's so difficult. And this is why I get to a point sometimes when I'm talking to somebody who still identifies as Muslim, and I'll get to a point where they'll say something and I'll just be like, I'm tapping out of this conversation because I know where their brain is at, and I know that there's no point in me continuing to talk because they're just not going to get it. You know, it's like trying to explain snow to somebody who's lived in Jamaica their whole life. You know, like they're not gonna, they just won't. I mean, I don't even know. Is there snow in Jamaica? I don't think there is. But like in Egypt, for example, I was trying to explain snow to my cousins, and they're like, you know, does it make noise when it falls? Like, does it, like, they just, you can't, you have to experience it. And another analogy I used before is like a fish doesn't know he's wet.
Yeah.
If you're immersed in this water completely, and everybody you know is immersed in this water, then you will have zero understanding what it's like to be dry. And then once you're out, like me now that I'm out of the water, and I look back, and it honestly feels like I'm living on a different planet. I'm living in a different world. The world is such a completely different place.
How did it feel the first few days that you got away? Like
Well, it was a
when you
very,
realised, like what was the thought process behind realising what the fuck am I doing?
yeah, it was it's a pretty gradual process, but I was elated. Like I was really, really happy to realize that I didn't have to believe in this bullshit anymore because it was fear that kept me. So in Islam, they teach you that if you question or if you doubt, it's the devil that's trying to pull you over. So you always try to push out those doubts and fears as much as possible, and you don't listen to them, and you feel that it's your fault, that you're the one who is you know, defective in some way, and
Yeah.
that's why you're unable to understand this, you know, wonderful poetry. um, so I lived my whole life feeling guilty and full of self-hate because I could not get in line. I could not believe this same shit that everybody around me was believing, and I just couldn't accept it. I mean,
Did it always no, did it always was it always a bit of a struggle to buy what they were talking to? You were just like
always,
talking
always,
really.
always a struggle, but I never blamed, I never like it was a struggle, but it was because me. I always blamed myself. It's a struggle because I couldn't understand, or because, you know, I had too much, the devil was too strong in me. Not because this stuff doesn't make any sense or it's immoral. It was me. So I always took the blame for it.
Did you think there was something wrong with you because you weren't?
Oh, definitely.
Did you,
Yeah.
like, everyone else seems to get it, but do you think
Yeah.
everyone did get it though, or do you think everyone was keeping up with the Kardashian sort of shit and just being like, yeah, I get this shit. It's all right, guys.
Yeah. And you know what? I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people, if not most people, do that. And the reason why is because it just costs too much to see the truth. It will cost you your family, your friends, your life in some cases. So it's just like, whatever, I'll just, you know, continue on with the status quo because it's survival at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, your Darwinian instincts are going to kick in if you think you're going to have your hands cut off.
Yeah. But for me, once I realized, it was a religious studies course that I took in university, and I started to realize how Islam was not this special snowflake, that it was actually just plagiarized from other religions, and that it's not the ultimate word of God, but it's just yet another of these religions. I was so, so relieved. I was so happy to be able to not force myself anymore. I equate it to probably how somebody must have felt if you're gay and you're raised in a household where you're told being gay is evil and bad and wrong, and then discovering that being gay is totally natural, like that feeling that you would get of like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to fight every single instinct in my body anymore. I can just be myself.
Mm.
That's how I felt. Like I was so relieved and I was more than happy to run away from it as quickly as possible.
Well, as I say, I'm glad that you've got away. I mean, was there like a
Me
eureka
too.
moment where you just looked at it and went, "This is stupid"? I don't know. Was there an escape moment? Do you think?
There were a few of those moments. It was a slow process. Like I'd say
Yeah,
probably about 2 years it took me before I finally, because I knew that I would lose.
everything.
I would lose everything. Yeah, like my mom was. She didn't even know that I wasn't a Muslim anymore. She just knew that I took off my hijab, and she threatened to kill me. So it was like,
Fuck. Your mum is a
yeah,
crazy bitch, Jess.
she is. She is
Sorry,
a crazy.
yes.
No,
Your mum is
absolutely.
wild. Like,
There's
fuck.
no argument from me. So, but I had to, it took me a long time to realize that, right? Because nobody wants to see, no matter how bad your mom is, you don't want to see it. Like you're going to make excuses for her. Um, and because I didn't have a dad in my life, she was my only parent. So it would have, it was such a big deal for me to finally admit that she is a horrible human being and I have to get away from her. But it wasn't until I had my daughter really that gave me the strength to finally walk away, because I looked at her and I realized like there's no way I'm going to let my daughter live the life that I lived. Like
You
I
were like,
can't
fuck
let her
that.
go through that. Yeah, like I can't let my mom treat her the way she treated me. I won't
Would
let
she
her
have?
do that. Oh yeah, yeah. She'd already started. And
Oh,
she'd
for
said
real? So,
something.
mum had
Yeah.
contact with Little Un then, yeah?
Yes, yeah, in the beginning. She was like 3 or 4 years old, and my mom had said something to her. I mean, it was like this. There was a little eureka moment. My mom had bought her this T-shirt, and it was like this khaki green color, and my daughter didn't like it because at that point she liked everything that was pink and purple and shiny.
She's a little girl,
And she's a
yeah.
little girl, yeah. And my mom said to her, "Are you stupid? What's wrong with you? This is a beautiful color. If you can't tell this is a beautiful color, then you're stupid."
Yeah, I think that you
And I
probably
was
ended up
like,
flipping the fuck out at that moment, boy.
yeah, yeah. So
Is
I
that
was
when you
like,
told your mum to get the fuck
whoa, yeah.
out?
Which was typical. I mean, I was told that stuff all the time and it was normal for me, but I wasn't going to allow it to be normal for my daughter. So
When
that's,
your maternal instincts clearly
yeah,
kicked in, you were like, bitch, I'll fuck you
yeah,
up.
yeah. And plus, I was a single mom, and so I was really insecure about everything. So I'd started taking like child psychology courses and all sorts of stuff. So when she said
Overcompensating
that to
from,
her, I
yeah.
was overcompensating, yeah. And so when she said that to her, it was so meaningful. Like I realized how dangerous it was that
Mm.
she spoke to her like that. But of course, when she was speaking to me like that, it was I did think I was stupid. You know, I didn't think that she was wrong for saying that to me
She
ever.
was bang on, like literally, she was on the money.
Yeah,
But then that's what years of conditioning does to you, though, isn't it? Like,
yeah, yeah. It takes. Yeah, it's very it's insidious,
it's
and this
why I
is
have
why.
some sympathy. I find it very
Yeah,
difficult to have sympathy. I'm not going to lie. It's like
yeah,
during the process, afterwards, it's fine. I can give all the sympathy in the world.
yeah.
During, like, while they're in it, it's difficult. Like, I
Totally
sound
agree.
like a horrible person, but like, I find it very difficult. People are like, "Oh, when you see the drone strikes and things like that, and they're like, "Oh, they're people," and we're just dropping drones on these people, and I'm like, "No, no, they're jihadi lunatic Muslims."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. No,
Like,
there I agree with you, to be honest. That's different. The jihadi lunatic Muslims, they're in war, right? They've decided that they're going to give their life for the cause. So
mm.
that's fine. You can go ahead and bomb them.
Go crack on,
But
lads.
yeah. But where my sympathies come in are with like just regular old
Civilians, yeah.
civilians, because Although some of them you don't know, right? Like you can't tell just
Well, no,
because
of course. I know we had there was recently an airstrike that killed. I think it was like the American airstrike killed like 65 civilians. They mistook the position that they were. It was like a
Mm-hmm.
group of people that were out, and they thought it was a group of like insurgents. And he
Mm-hmm.
made us like the again, like I don't condone it. It's awful, but like the pilot's making a split-second decision at
Yeah,
like 2.5 miles up in the sky,
yeah.
and you think
And
just it's horrible, but
it is
like
absolutely horrible, but it's war, you know? Like, I mean, the guy that had the truck that drove through the people that were about to watch the fireworks in Nice, you know, he meant to kill civilians. That was his plan, that was his goal.
that was this is the exact this is the difference
That's the
this is the
difference.
difference that
Yeah.
people can't seem to split between like
One is a mistake and one is an actual objective.
well exactly that. I don't think I've ever known sorry, allied, I'll call them allied troops that have it's intentionally gone out of their way to fucking like murder civilians. It just
Yeah,
doesn't
obviously
happen.
not.
Like
Hmm.
I heard I think who was I watching? It was an Oxford Union speech recently, and a young Pakistani girl was one of the people that was on the Oxford Union guys, and she was like. She was talking to Tommy Robinson, and she was like, "How do you respond to people that say that foreign politics is a main driver for insurgency movements in the West, with reports of British soldiers raping Pakistani women and raping Afghani women and things?" I'm thinking to myself, like, I just don't know people that would let that happen.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
just, like, it's just not. I've seen people be
But
rough with people. Don't get me wrong. Like, do you know, I've seen people be
yeah.
rough with people, but that shit never went down that I've seen.
But then again, too, like even if it did happen, there would be hell to pay. It's not like if it happens in the Muslim world, it's totally sanctioned and fine because Prophet Muhammad said that you can rape the prisoners of war. You kill off the men and then you keep the women and the girls and you take them as sex slaves.
Well, the
So
prime example,
there's a
we've got
big
soldiers
difference.
in. We have British soldiers in jail for actions committed in
There
Afghanistan
you
and
go.
Iraq. They went to
Nobody
jail.
says, "Oh, that's okay." You know, it's fine. It's
So no,
sanctioned by the law.
it's not sanctioned. As you say, it's like people go to jail for that shit. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
soldiers in jail for some bullshit stuff as well. There's a gentleman in jail for killing an ISIS insurgent who he'd been like they'd been in a firefight. They went to clear the position after Apache air support came through. There's a guy bleeding to death on the floor, and to be honest with you, I personally think he did the right thing. He humanely put bullets between his eyes.
Mm.
But the
Hmm.
guy's taken 30 millimeter depleted uranium rounds to his body. He's not going to survive for
Yeah.
hours. He's just going to die in awful pain. I mean,
Hmm.
he'd just been in combat for a long time. On his head cam, I think he said that this is slightly against. I'm paraphrasing again, but he said this is
Mm.
against the Geneva Convention, and pulled his sidearm and shot him in the head. But you
Yeah.
know, like it's ruthless. We hear that as ruthless and vicious, but like in my honest opinion, he did the most humane thing that he could for the person. What is he going to leave him there to
Hmm.
bleed out while they wait for air support to bring him on a helicopter while he lives for the rest of his life with no, like shitting in a bag for the rest of his life? Like
Yeah.
I find it really difficult when like it's a moral argument that a lot of people just can't understand because they've never been in that sort of position before.
Yeah.
We live a very very comfortable life in the West. Most
Hmm.
people have absolutely no fucking I don't know, no idea about violence at all. The closest they get to violence is getting into an altercation at a pub on a Saturday night, you know,
Yeah.
like, and they've got no idea about it.
Hmm.
It's crazy, and then these people will then make moral equivocations on soldiers that get into these altercations. It's really difficult for me to sort of
Hmm.
listen to it. But so,
Because
how
you've
long?
lived it.
Well, yeah, to some respect, yeah. How do you feel? Like you're obviously out now. How long exactly have you been out for? I know you said at the beginning of the stream, but
Um,
officially,
well,
official
yeah,
numbers.
it's hard to say because, like I said, it was a slow process. But um, 2002 is when I separated from my mom. Like, was when I told her well, I didn't tell her anything, but she saw me without a hijab on, and then she flipped out, and and then that's when I realized, like, okay, I can't both have my freedom and live my life comfortably and still have a connection to my family and friends, because I wasn't allowed to be friends with non-Muslims, so everybody that everything in my life, my entire identity was being a Muslim. There is no other um,
There was nothing
there's
else.
no backup. There's no, yeah, that's who you are. You are a Muslim. That's it. So the everything, like I was just saying to a friend of mine earlier today, actually, that I always felt 100% Canadian. That's who I was. And so when I was being told that I should be a Muslim, that that was my identity, I felt like a fraud because it wasn't who I was. It wasn't who I felt I was. It wasn't who I wanted to be. Um, and again, that was like really, really strong. So like if you remember the big deal that happened when God, Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner was like taught where how she was talking about, always feeling like she was a woman, but everybody referred to her as a male and acted like that kind of language reminded me of growing up because I was always referred to as a Muslim. Every all of my actions and the way I dressed and everything was that I looked like was as a Muslim, but on the inside, I never it was never who I was. It was never where I felt comfortable. It was never my actual identity. But I didn't have another identity, so it's kind of weird. But anyway, so when I finally did decide that I wasn't going to be a Muslim anymore, I didn't know how to how to not be a Muslim.
Yeah, well, as you say, there's no that you'd been immersed in it for so long. It's not something that you knew.
Yeah. So even though I knew it's not what I wanted, I had no idea what the other side meant. So it was a re-identifying myself, like reinventing myself.
Yeah,
And that started probably in 2004 when I moved away. And so then I was away, like nobody knew me. This is actually when I moved to the Middle East,
yeah.
ironically enough. I moved to the Middle East and nobody knew me there. Um, and so I could just reinvent myself. I could just be who I always wanted to be. And that just happened organically.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then I came back to Canada again and through Facebook and stuff like that, like I found some older friends and people that I knew in high school and stuff, and they tell me like, "Oh no, you're the same you. Like you're exactly the same. You just don't have anything on your head anymore."
So
But I
I've
felt
just,
like,
yeah, spare me 1 second. I've just got.
sure.
I'm just going to let you know that we've got someone who is currently a practicing Muslim in our chat at the moment, spouting a lot of shit. So I'll just forewarn you, okay?
Okay.
Is
Oh,
that all right? Do you want to continue or?
sure.
Yeah,
Spout
absolutely.
about like, do you want us to respond?
Then we can do if you want. Apparently, I'll just read you what he said.
Mm.
He wants to come into the conversation. He's absolutely not coming into the conversation.
Okay.
Um, apparently, you were never a Muslim to begin with,
Oh God, that old chestnut.
and a
Yeah, I've
Muslim is
heard
a
that shit
person who has
before. You know
submitted
what?
himself to God Almighty. Do you,
Yeah,
it's all right.
tell me.
Felix is dealing with him in the chat. So.
Yeah, thanks for that, Felix. You hear that's such an old. Have you ever seen this Muslim apologetics bingo thing where it's just like they have these constant things that they say because they just regurgitate what they were told. And this goes back to my whole point about no critical thinking and no independent thought. So this whole you were never a Muslim, that's something that gets said all the time over and over and over again. I don't get it. Like I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Like that's actually a compliment to me that I never bought into this bullshit.
You didn't fall
So
for the madness, really. You were a free thinker all along.
I was. I mean, I suffered for it. I had a lot of self-hate and I thought I was going to burn in hell for it. But yeah, I've struggled with it from the beginning. So I don't know first of all, what's the definition of a real Muslim? Because apparently ISIS that follows Prophet Muhammad like verbatim are not considered real Muslims. So apparently your prophet isn't a real Muslim either. Who's to judge, right? I don't know what that means. It means nothing. Shias don't think that Sunnis are Muslim. Sunnis don't think that Shias are Muslim. Neither Sunnis nor Shias think that Ahmadis are Muslim. Like, whatever the fuck, dude. Like, think whatever you want to think. It doesn't actually mean that it's reality. That's my response to him.
It's fucking crazy. It's just well, if you can believe in fairy tale, apparently he's a revert, so he left Islam and went back.
I cannot understand that. I've heard of people doing that. I mean, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how you can be an atheist and then go back to believing in fairy tales again. It
I'll
just
tell you something about a lot of atheists. They're still desperate. They're still desperately clinging on to that, to something that's
the
within religion.
community, is
Yeah,
it?
maybe the community, but I think they still hold some of the dogmatism that comes with it as well. There's some sort of wanting. A lot of atheists I know are very, very like conspiracy theory minded.
So they're trying to find something.
Yeah, there's some sort of fantasy element to it. Absolutely, there's some sort of fantasy element to it. It's crazy. But crazy people sort of push towards crazy things. But then I don't think all religious people are crazy either. I think indoctrination during childhood is a very, very powerful
Mm-hmm.
and repugnant tool, really, to be honest with you.
I 100% agree. I mean, if you try to sell that kind of bullshit to a thinking adult, they would never buy it. But, kids believe in Santa Claus and Easter Bunny and anything you tell them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's so easy to brainwash them with this garbage at such a young age. Um, and then it's stuck. That's it.
Well, exactly. I mean, I don't know really what to say on that exact matter. I mean, I'm not. I've never. I have never had religion around me from
Uh,
ever, ever, ever. I mean, we sang hymns at school, but everyone sort of like took the piss out of them and made up their own words to them. Like,
mhm.
yeah, while shepherds wash their cocks at night and that sort of stuff.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
And then like we
it's
had church parade when I was a soldier, and I quite like Chaplain Charlie, like our padre.
mhm,
He was a nice bloke. Like I used to go for a whiskey
mhm,
with him and a chat. That was about the closest I've ever been to religion. It's always
mhm.
been something that's so alien to me. And obviously, when
Yeah.
I listen to you guys speak and how immersed people can get,
Mhm.
there's another guy that I speak to quite regularly called Adam, and I mean he was quite heavily immersed within Christianity. I think he said that. I'm sure he won't mind me saying this because he said it publicly as well. But he believed that he was possessed by Satan at one point.
Yeah, they make you believe that. Yeah,
It's
that's
just fucking
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
I
yeah. And
can't.
then they perform exorcisms to get Satan out. Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. I'm curious to find out if Islam has sort of an exorcism movement with
Oh
it.
yes.
Oh,
Oh yeah, they
really?
do. Yeah, if it's just actually quite terrible. I mean, they do horrific things. Like there's a guy named Sohail Ahmed who's from he's from the UK actually. He's living in London and he's been on BBC and whatnot and Rachel Maddow and he's talked about how when he was a Muslim
Mm.
and he realized that he couldn't fight the fact that he was gay, so he came out to his parents and then they performed exorcisms on him. And yeah, he goes on in detail like how I think they would starve him and all sorts of crazy
So it's like
shit.
really invasive and disgusting procedures. It's not like
Yes.
throwing holy water on him and
No.
saying the power of
No.
Christ compels you or anything.
No, not that nice.
Oh,
And he actually he tried to commit suicide at the end of it because he just couldn't see a way out. He couldn't stop himself from being
fuck.
gay. Yeah. And it was such an evil, horrible thing to have in him and he couldn't get it out. And so he's like, well, there's nothing else I can do.
So not only did he have the burden of like clearly not believing the doctrine that he was being sort of fed through. He had the burden of sort of
He's,
knowing that he liked fucking dudes as well. Like
yeah,
that
well, he
was,
still believed, he believed in the doctrine at that point. He was like heavily into it because what Islam tells you is if you start to feel like you're straying off the path,
mm,
then you have to become more and more religious.
yeah,
And in Islam, to become more and more religious basically means to become more and more radical, like more and more.
more
So he was
pious.
actually
Yeah.
planning a bombing, a suicide bombing, because he thought that would sort of cleanse his soul.
Well, this is something that I seem to find quite. Everyone goes, "Oh, he wasn't a pious Muslim. He drank, he smoked, he fornicated, he did all this." But it's like, but this is one of the main driving factors behind them doing this stuff,
Yep.
isn't it?
Yep.
It's absolutely. It's like going to church and confessing.
Yes, exactly. It's the ultimate thing that you can do for God is to give your life up for him and to take a few non-Muslims with you when you're going. That's
Get some
like,
of them kafirs on the way.
yes, yes, that's right. That's it. That's top of the food chain. Like, and then everybody that you leave behind on earth is like, they call you like a shaheed, and they like everybody. It's the highest honor on earth and in heaven.
Mm,
So
that's
yeah.
crazy to me. So, how do you feel that in your position now that you're going to help give other people the tools? I mean, what tools do you think that are available to you that you can offer to people to give them the help to leave the faith?
Well, I think for me personally, all I can do is offer like the support
Mm,
of my story. And when people read it and they connect with it and they relate to it and then they feel like, okay, it's possible to get out of this. You know, like it's I can do this too. But there are now, because of social media, things that weren't available for me back when I left Islam. But there
mm.
are a lot of like faith to faithless is available to help people who are in dangerous situations, who need to just get out quick. We have the Ex-Muslims of North America, the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain. Like there are quite a few ex-Muslim support groups out there that are
Even
working towards helping people.
even the guys at Quilliam, I mean, I know they're all
Yes.
Muslims, but like I, I find Harris Rafiq, like I love the guy to pieces. He's the managing director at Quilliam. I think he's the most
Mhm.
least known out of all of them, but he's fucking fantastic. Like
Mhm.
I needed some advice on a friend of mine who's in Turkey, and I asked him, and he was forthcoming. He emailed me back within 10 minutes. He's like, "If you need anything, let me know."
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, this dude's like putting his neck on the line, and they're fucking hated so much, man. Like,
Yeah. They are
yeah,
because they think of like they put humanity above a specific
Islam, yeah,
religious group, you know? And Muslims, that's a total no-no. Muslims come first before any other people don't matter. Like other people are just like they are just fuel for hellfire. The only people that matter are Muslims. Like people's favorite thing to talk about is how Prophet Muhammad freed the slaves. No, he didn't. He freed Muslim slaves. That's it. If you weren't a Muslim, you're still going to be a fucking slave.
yeah.
So people forget that. Like, yes, you can't rape Muslim women, but you can rape non-Muslim women. Like, there's a complete hierarchy there. And
Well,
then, yeah, this foundation doesn't adhere to that, right? They're like, no, we're all human beings, we're all people, and they have a very um, you know, just a
that's
liberal mindset, like it's even though they're Muslim, they are secular minded Muslims,
well, absolutely. They understand that they've got a choice. They either go that way or they get destroyed. I think because
Yeah,
that's the ultimatum, isn't it? I think really,
totally agree. Yeah.
it's
But
not.
that's why Muslims hate them so much. They are really hated. And then so are the other, like the um Astronomani, what's her group called?
Mm,
Muslim Reform Movement.
I see.
Um,
And you got that Mariam Namazi as well, who
yeah,
drives me
that's right.
fucking
And
but
she's an ex she's an ex-Muslim who I think
still a
is
Muslim at heart.
communist.
Yeah, so that she rubs me up the wrong way just because she's commie. But she's nice. I think she's got good intentions and her heart's in the right place. But
Mm.
she
Yeah.
to like still have open borders, and like, I can't let that happen. I can't.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not. I think you're probably referring to the Sam Harris discussion that I didn't
It's,
actually hear, but I saw a lot of tweets about it, so I probably should listen to it at some point,
it's
but
pretty fucking painful. I wouldn't
I
recommend
never got
it, to be
around to it.
honest with you. It's fucking painful. It just made me quite angry listening to it. It's like 2 hours of her shouting Sam down, saying you're not listening to me, and then Sam saying, "Okay, I'm listening to you," and
Hmm.
him listening to everything she says, coming back with like really reasonable arguments and points, and then her saying, "You're not listening to me." Again, it's just like, dude, like chill the fuck out, and then essentially implying that he's a racist, or he's bigoted, he's Islamophobic, and this and that. And I just don't
Hmm.
think it's helpful to the conversation when he's clearly not. It's just,
Hmm.
I think Miriam's still got an element. While she her loyalties are with her culture still, rather than with the ideals of spreading. She doesn't see that Western capitalist democracy is the best ideal. Obviously, she sees communism as the way forward, which is why I call her a fucking
Right.
communist. I'm surprised she hasn't blocked me, to be honest with you. But fair play to her. She,
Mhm.
like, I just generally, like, I'm polite. I'm like, I like Mariam, but she's a filthy communist. But
Oh dear.
yeah, I do. I don't dislike her. Part of me likes what she does, and like, I don't. There's no disdain for her, but like the communism
Yeah.
stuff really just fucking rubs me up the wrong way. It's stupid,
Yeah.
you know.
I can understand that. I mean, I love her too. I think she's great, but I don't understand how people can get out of one ideology and then just get into another one. Like I feel like it's you're out of the frying pan into another frying pan. Like, what are
it's
you doing?
it's
I'm so
exactly what
happy
we
to
were
be
talking
free
about.
personally.
It's exactly what we were talking about with atheists needing something to sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's no different. They need something to back up to give them their feelings. They
Hmm.
need the
Hmm.
ideology to reinforce who they are,
They need
because
a structure of some sort.
yeah, absolutely. They're not comfortable in their own. I really do think it's a case of not being comfortable in their own skin. I really
Hmm.
do. So how's
Because
the
it's
book?
hard.
Yeah, it is
It's
very hard.
difficult to not have any, there are no answers, and this is our short-lived life, and it's weird,
Do you
and
know
it's
what?
difficult to.
I remember asking my dad as a younger man, like, what's the point? Why are we all here? And he just looked at me and
Hmm.
goes, "Don't know, son."
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And
Good
then
dad.
I like gave me. I had the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy tapes, and then
There
like,
you
the
go.
joke
Oh,
came
wow.
in. It's 42, isn't it? The answer to the universe is the answer to life, the universe, and
Yeah.
everything in between is 42. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah. Yeah.
answer.
There
Like,
you
I
go.
just exactly. It's just never been a relevant question to me. It's like, why? It's just not the point. Just enjoy while we're here.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
I'm consistently fucking up with my life on a regular
We all
basis and
are.
making silly mistakes. But
You
fuck it.
grow.
Yeah, exactly. Just learn from it and move on from there.
Hmm.
Just, what can you do? You only get one.
Hmm.
And
That's
I'm
right.
surprised I've made it to 31. To be honest with you, I'm still. So,
Yeah.
how's the book coming along? I know you said before we went on that you were having some writer's block or some issues getting any time to do it, or
Yeah, it's just it takes it right out of me. Like if I sit down to write a chapter,
I bet it
like
does.
I'll sit down for a few hours and I'll write it, and then for the whole rest of the day, I'm just like depleted. Like people talk to me and I just stare, like my brain is just mush. Like it's really difficult to get back into that time frame and into that mindset and to think about what happened and how I felt, and yeah, it's just difficult. So I don't like doing it.
Yeah, no, I
And
can
I'm
imagine it. Like, I'm not going to lie that like I, I don't say this lightly, but it does choke me up every chapter that I read. I'm like, oh, you poor motherfucker! Like you lived
yeah.
through this mental bitch, and like just
Yeah.
fuck, like.
Yeah. I don't know how I did it. I mean, at the time, it didn't feel, it was just life, it was just
Well,
my
that's
world.
exactly how you did it, honey. Like
Yeah.
that's the only reason you did it, because it was just the Darwinian survival instinct. Like, so what? I'm gonna
Hmm.
fucking die? Fuck that shit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no way. Absolutely
But
not.
But now I look back when I'm writing it all down and I'm like, holy shit, how did I get through all that? Like, there's so many things.
I'm surprised you
Yeah.
remember everything. Do you remember everything, or do you think you block a lot
I
out? Or
don't. Yeah, I have, there's a
selective
lot of things
memory?
I don't remember. Quite a few things, like quite a few things. I'll think back and I can remember bits of it, but I can't remember the full. Yeah, like there's huge chunks of time that I've blocked out. And quite often I talk to friends too who'll say to me, like, remember when this and this happened or something? And I'll be like, yeah, I have no
No.
memory of that whatsoever. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So I have a lot of blocks and a lot of it too. Like, I just didn't think about any of this stuff for so many years. I
Mm.
just didn't want it to have, I didn't want it to bring me down. I didn't, so I just buried it and just put it away.
So
And I
why did
didn't,
you do it then? What made you do the book? What made you
I
start
think.
putting this together?
Yeah, so it was finding the ex-Muslim community sort of because for a long time, once I left Islam, I wanted nothing to do with it. Like I couldn't stand even hummus. I wouldn't eat hummus because I was like, fuck that, I'm not eating no Arab shit. Like
Just
I
eat Jewish
just,
hummus, you're fine.
yeah, that's right. I'll eat Israeli couscous, but I'm not eating the Moroccan stuff. You know, like I just couldn't stand anything to do with any of it. I couldn't stand to hear people speaking Arabic. I couldn't stand to hear the music. I wanted nothing to do with any of it.
Mm.
And I was like that for a while because it had caused me so much trauma and and I had so much residual anger towards it.
Okay.
And it took a long time before I got to the stage where I'm not angry. Like now I'm not blanket angry anymore, but I have more specific anger. Like it's more logical. So obviously I do not think that like I am angry at the control that the Islamic world has right now. I'm angry at obviously at all of the people that are having to die all over the world because of Islam. I'm angry at those kinds of things, but I'm not just angry in general anymore. Now I was able to see that there are a lot of Muslim people around the world that are in the same position that I was in, that are stuck in their lives.
Mm.
A lot of women, more than men, are stuck in their lives because of just the circumstances, and they can't get out. So even in their own heads, they can't even be free. So I started to have more empathy towards people like that in those situations. Um, but really, it all just started because of everything that's been happening in the news and politics and stuff. And a couple of years ago, you'd hear people say things like, "Oh, but Islam is the religion of peace," and I'd be like, "What?" Like, who, what, where, when did this bullshit start to spread?
So did you
And
not? Were you sort of that that? Were you in that much of a bubble? You didn't notice that this appeasement was happening in the West then when you were living here, or
yeah,
did you
I
think it
wasn't
was
I
just a
wasn't paying
recent
attention to
thing?
it. I wasn't paying attention to it at all. I was living in my own world and it meant nothing to me. I didn't care. It wasn't until I'd say probably about 2011 with all the serious stuff started to bubble up
Mm.
when, and then the apologists aggravated me enough to start to speak up. Because up until then, people had known me for like 10 years and they had no idea that I used to be Muslim because it would never come up. It was completely irrelevant. Um, but then, yeah, the apologists would come forward and they'd start to say stupid things. And I was like, no, like you don't know what you're talking about. Like you're wrong. And then I'd have to say, I used to be Muslim. I was born and raised in that world, and what you're talking about is incorrect. And even then, they would fight back and say, oh, well, you used to be Muslim, so you can't be trusted because obviously you have a vendetta or something. Like you're not an authentic voice. And I'm like, if I was ex-CIA or ex-Scientologist or ex anything else in the world,
You,
people would respect what I have to say because they'd say, oh, well, she knows, she's been in the trenches.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
somehow,
You're an
you know,
authority in any other situation. If you've lived and been through it, and you can discuss it in detail, you're an authority. You've got some sort of weight behind you. But when it comes
mhm,
to Islam, there's just no. It's like no.
you can't win.
There's No, well, this motherfucker earlier on in the chat, he was like that. Yeah, she weren't really a fucking Muslim, mate. Fucking behave. Like, let me into the chat. Let me in. You've got no chance, son. Fucking do one.
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
fucking crazy. Like,
Yeah, you just can't win. But the good thing is, like when they're on Twitter, like the apologists or the whatever, and they're saying all their bullshit, and then an ex-Muslim comes along, like we know the truth. Like you can't sell that shit to us.
you've
So
eaten
quite
it
often
already.
they'll
You
just
don't
run
know.
away.
Do they run away as well? Is that?
They'll run away because they're like, uh-oh, she knows. I
Oh
can't.
shit! She's been inside the mosque. She knows what's up.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. I recently watched a Dispatchers. It's a program from Channel 4, and they were visiting. They basically infiltrated a bunch of mosques around the country, and holy
Mm,
fuck!
yeah.
It's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
drone strikes on all of these positions right now.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Every Friday, walk into any mosque on any Friday and listen to the khutbah, the sermon that's being said,
Khutbah.
and it's going to be
Khutbah.
khutbah, yeah, and it's going to be full of violence and
Kill the
full of,
kafir.
oh gosh, that's the first thing. That's like the most basic thing. I thought it was so funny when I read this article and it said something like, "Oh my God, Islamic schools are teaching the kids that they should hate kuffar and that they should kill them." And I'm like, and the sky is blue. Like, how did you not know that?
Yes,
Like,
water is wet, ice is cold. What the fuck is wrong with
yes,
you?
yeah, yeah,
Yes, they hate you.
that's the most benign, like that's the first thing you get told. It's not even anything special.
Are the mosques like that in the States and and
In
in
Canada,
in Canada?
yeah, they definitely, the mosque, because I went to Muslim schools when I was growing up, and it
Sorry,
was
what's the Muslim school called again?
it's just called, oh, I can't tell you what it's called because then it tells you what area I'm in.
Oh no, no, I don't mean the actual school itself. Is there a school name of it? Like, is there like
Yeah,
a
no,
certain?
it's,
No, do they not call it a certain name? Schools called
oh,
like
madrasa.
madrasa. That's it. Thank
That's
you.
right.
That's the word. That
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
I'm
and
not.
that's,
Can I just have your GPS location,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
please?
I would if we weren't being
No,
recorded.
no, no.
But yeah. Yeah, it's called
Uh,
madrasa, just means school in
yeah,
Arabic. But yeah, it's meant, now it's being used for like Islamic schools.
yeah.
And yes, they have them all over Pakistan, all over the world.
They've got
And they
them all
opened
over
one
here.
here
Yeah.
in Canada. All over the UK. And yeah, it's going to be horrific shit that's being taught to the kids in there. And none of the stuff they need to know. There's no there's no science, there's no sex education. It's
Sex.
all,
Don't talk about that. All the women should know is rape, and all the
that's
boys
it.
should know is how
Yeah.
to rape.
Yeah. Yeah.
I sound awful. I'm going to get banned from YouTube for saying this sort of
Well, no,
stuff.
you know what? It was totally, wasn't there? There was a guy that went to a Muslim school his whole life, and he raped a young girl, and then he said, "Oh, I didn't realize it was wrong. I didn't know. I went to Muslim schools. They never taught me that rape was wrong." And so
That
the
is the
judge let him
defense of
off.
a lifetime, isn't it? Like I didn't know I
Yeah,
couldn't do that, officer.
it worked.
Like that,
That's the
the
world we live in.
judge that let that motherfucker off. Like fucking, like ignorance is not an excuse to break the law. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
goodbye.
and that's
Like
a precedent has been set now, right?
they know they can do things. Like people know that they can get away with things. Like, and that really is really troublesome to me. Like,
Hmm.
like personally, I don't really see what the solution is in England and in the sorry in Britain and and further European Union. I just don't see it. I mean, I'm glad that we're leaving the EU, but we're still going to have a home problem to deal with.
Hmm.
Here already.
Until for sure, and it's gonna. I mean, it's gonna take generations before this problem that we are currently in is even dealt with. Like this is not. We're not going to see the end of this in our lifetime.
But I worry that
But
we can't see. Do you know? I'll be honest with you, as I worry that it's already too late. The tipping scales are there. It's happened already. The tipping point's happened, and Western culture's become so comfortable, so happy in its affluence that we're too weak to fight back now. That there's not enough people that are willing to fight back. Because while I appreciate the wonderful people like yourself and Brownie and fucking Pharaoh and everyone else that sit and talk and discuss this and say that the battle of ideas that needs to be fought, it's not enough. It's not
No,
enough.
it's not enough. I mean, we need to, we're falling on deaf ears right now, but we need people to hear us. Like once the powers that be, people that actually have control, once they start to view all human beings as individuals and judge them based on their actions and not based on their ethnicity or the color of their skin,
Mm,
then things can start to change. That's when it's going to happen. But if somebody does something and the white guilt, or the, like you were talking about, like how Germans, like you can still feel the guilt there, like
yeah,
if that guilt is going to override your ability to look at a situation, um, logically, then we're going to continue with this problem that we have right now. Like you have to be able to, when somebody comes up to you and says, um, I didn't know that rape was wrong because I went to Muslim schools, the response should be, well, too fucking bad. I don't care what schools you went to. You're a human being. Like you would know that
that's fine.
raping an
We're still gonna
individual is
hang
wrong.
you. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
like I would never be able to be like, "Oh, I didn't realize that stabbing somebody was wrong. Nobody ever told me." Like it doesn't, you, like she told you. You would have heard her, like she's resisting. Like there's not,
Yeah,
in what
that,
universe would that be? Of course it's wrong to do something to somebody against their will. You know, like it goes back to these ridiculous stories of like that guy in Sweden that was raped by a Somali refugee.
and then said, "Oh, don't deport." Oh,
You
fucking
got it. You
Christ.
got it like that. Like as long, if your logic, if your brain, your intellect goes out the window because the person that you're dealing with happens to have dark skin or comes from a third world country, then you're fucked.
Where's the survival instinct though? Yeah, it's like honestly, my love, like, I don't see it. I just don't see it anywhere. Like I hate to admit it, but like I'm looking at these Trump people who are like. I understand why they're gravitating towards him. I think they're making a horrible mistake,
But yeah,
but I do understand it. But I see that's like the resistance. They're the
it
people that are
is.
desperate for change and desperate for, and I see it here with people that vote for the United Kingdom Independence Party that
Yep.
they get
And in
tarnished.
Canada too. Yeah, yep,
I don't. Again, I'm sorry. I know you've got Justin Trudeau as like the biggest fucking like fanny that I've ever known in
yep,
my life, but
100%.
like, oh, that cunt just fucking. What did he do? I saw him put his hand on his chest and bow to women the other day. I was like,
Yes.
what are you doing? Stop appeasing
Yeah.
this ridiculous shit.
That's exactly my point. That's it. In a nutshell, right there. Stop appeasing this ridiculous shit, and then we might have a chance.
Yeah, and then I see people on Twitter like, "This is how you greet a Muslim woman." I'm like, "You're
Mm.
fucking dumb." How you greet a Muslim woman is like this. All right, love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Same as I greet everyone, you know. Like
That's
there
right.
is
That's right. Same as I greet everyone. That's the way it should be.
male or
Yeah.
female, like you get treated exactly the same. Like I
Mhm.
just don't male or female, black, white, brown, pink, Asian.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I couldn't publicize some of the conversations I have with people that are like my friend group's quite diverse, and like if you were to listen to us on a public forum, we'd get arrested. Like
Yeah.
it's
That's the world we live in now.
well, this is it. But everyone's like what would be perceived as horrifically racist to everyone, but
Mhm.
it's just the way friends talk to each other. Do you know, like
Mhm.
especially male friends, they're like brash and obnoxious and horrible to
Mhm.
each other.
Mhm.
And I don't get it. Like this was okay when I was younger. Like this is what
Mhm.
life was, and it's progressively disappeared. Like this tough,
Censorship.
well, yeah, the toughness of people being able to listen to
Mhm.
other, even like when I was like, kids don't even fight anymore at school. I don't think, do they? Like
Mhm.
what? Like I know
No.
you've got a child, so like you're probably a lot closer to this. I've got a niece and a nephew. One of them's
Mhm.
just gone to nursery. The other one's two, like, doesn't even fucking walk. He could just about shit his pants at the moment. So yeah, he's like fucking potatoes.
Aw.
But they are in there. It's just like
Yeah. Wobbling potatoes.
exactly. He's fucking potato, my nephew. He's great and everything. He's hilarious, but they're potatoes. But like, so I'm a kind of detracted. But like, as far as I can see, kids don't even get into fights. So I went out
Mm-mm.
recently for a night out, And it's the first time in years that I've gone out and people weren't even fighting in the street after the drinking. And it's horrible to see it when, like, you think back the next day, you're like, oh Jesus Christ, these people are an embarrassment. Look at the state of them. But then you think to yourself, but if that's not happening, what happens when we do actually have to fight in the street for real? You know, there's no.
Yeah.
It might sound a bit ridiculous to think that that's
No,
a
it's.
necessary evil to our
I
culture,
get what
to
you're
our
saying, though.
society.
Yeah, it toughens you. It's like a friend of mine was saying to me before. He said, "Well, I'm actually, this is why I'm a fan of bullying." And I
Yes,
laughed. But he's right, because what he was saying was it sort of teaches people that are not conforming to societal norms.
to sort their shit out and get it
Sort their
together.
shit.
Or they kill themselves and they're removed from the gene pool, so that's okay.
Either way, it's a win-win. But I think it's sort of what you're saying too. Like, you gotta get toughened up. You can't. Well, this is why now college. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in America, they've got like the safe spaces, and oh, you have to give me a trigger warning, and like it's gone way off the deep end. Everybody's
Absolutely,
just a bunch of pansies now, and
it's
nobody can handle even a discussion because they're like, oh no, I don't agree with that point of view, and the fact that you brought it up is offending me.
well, yeah. This is everyone. As I said before, everyone's feelies have got to be kept intact
Yeah,
at the moment. Oh, my little feelies, my
yeah.
believies. Make me feel
Yes, my
warm and
beliefs.
fuzzy
Oh, I
inside.
love it.
Oh, it
It's a
make me
good new one for me.
I'm stealing that from Louis C.K. He did it
Oh,
before. I'm plagiarising
I
Parker.
love it.
You know, like,
I heard feelies before, but I didn't hear believies.
my little
That's awesome.
believies, they make me feel warm inside. They do it for me. They make me feel like a good person. I don't act on any of them, but they make me feel
Yeah.
good.
Oh, it's so true. That is so true.
It
Oh,
is.
he's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fucking relevant. Like, everyone wants to like virtue signal the shit out of everything, but the reality of the situation is it is very fucking different. You know,
Yeah.
like, everyone's got their biases, and everyone really knows what's going on. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how
They're
much
just
long?
afraid to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. How much longer have you got, my love? Or do you need to get off
I
soon?
actually should. Yeah, I should let you go.
No,
I
it's
should
fine. It's
sign off.
uh, have you got anything you want to sign off with? Have you got any final thoughts? Yasmin's final
Um,
thoughts.
I actually can't think of anything off the top of my head. We've gone through quite a bit. I mean, I could talk to you for hours. This has been really fun.
Yeah, we
I
have to do
enjoyed
it
it.
again, definitely.
Yeah. So, yeah, final thoughts. I don't know, fight the power. Just think, use your brain. Don't take whatever is being told to you as truth. Like, research, question. That's my, if there are any Muslims listening right now that are angry at anything that I've had to say, just think about it. Think about, why are you angry? Delve into those feelings. Don't just regurgitate what you've been told, and just think about it, research it, question it. All of the answers are out there. Google is like the way smarter than your almighty Allah. So just go in there and read more than just one 1,500-year-old book. Just that's my
That's
hope.
No, honestly thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you spending time with me. What I'll upload links to your excerpts from your book onto the actual video once it's uploaded properly. If that's okay with you, that is.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this, and
Yeah, as I say,
hopefully
you're
we'll get to
welcome.
talk again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime that you want to come back and have a chat about anything, you're more than welcome. I'm going to stop the broadcast.